it's Moose, and thank you so much for joining me back here. Today I have my recent reads wrap-up video for March. We are in April for March. I had a decent reading month in March. I read 6, kind of 7 books in March, and we'll get into that here in a minute. And I think I enjoyed pretty much all of them, which is great. I have a good variety. I have some thrillers, I have some fantasy, I have some romances. So let's jump into it and talk about my reads for March. First book I'm going to talk about in March was probably my favorite book in March. I have Local Woman Missing by Mary Kubica? I don't know. I'm sorry. Excellent. This is a thriller. It's my favorite in March. It was so good. Basically, it's kind of like a domestic thriller, and we get flashbacks and flash forwards. So in the present moment, there's a little girl who has been kidnapped, and she has been locked in this basement for like 16 years, 14 years. I don't remember exactly how long, but it is a long time, maybe 12 years. It's been a long time, and she's never been let out of the basement. And so we see her struggle to escape and kind of the aftermath of that escape, and we learn her name. And so the story jumps between her and her present story and then the past leading up to her kidnapping. There's also a murder in this, and we're kind of trying to figure out who did it, why they did it, what's going on. Her mom was murdered when she was kidnapped, and so we get perspectives from her mom, we get perspectives from the neighbors, we get perspectives from her brother, all leading up to the events that kind of were the catalyst for this story. The moms were the most interesting to me, just to kind of piece together why she would have been murdered, if her murder was the reason for the kidnapping, if the kidnapping was the reason for her murder, all that kind of stuff. The ending blew my mind. It was so good. I didn't really see it coming. It was great. I listened to it as an audiobook. My attention was engaged the entire time. It was very not fast-paced, but even when we were in kind of slower-paced moments, I was still thinking about some of the faster-paced moments and anticipating what would happen next. So it was great, and I really liked it. Like I say, it was my favorite for March. I also read another book by her, Just the Nicest Couple. This one was fine. I feel like I would have liked this one a lot more if I hadn't just read Local Woman Missing. If I had read this one first and then read the other one, I think I would have liked this one a lot more. But Local Woman Missing was so good and so intense that this one did not quite match that intensity. And this one we have 2 different couples. We have our main couple. I can't even remember their names. I don't remember their names. And then a side couple, Nina and Jake, I think are their names. So we get the first couple's his perspective and then Nina's perspective. So Nina's husband has gone missing, and she has no idea if he's alive, if he's dead, where he's gone, anything like that. He's a workaholic. He hasn't shown up for work, so she knows that something's wrong. And the girl over here, what is her name? Lily and Christian are this couple. So we get Christian's perspective and Nina's perspective. And Lily's over here thinking that she might be the last person to have seen Jake before he disappeared. And so she confesses this to her husband, to Christian. And the 2 of them decide that the events leading up to his disappearance need to be kept a secret. And so the story's them 2 kind of trying to cover their tracks. Nina looking for her husband along the side. There's lies, there's deception, there's guessing. I didn't see the ending coming for this one either, but it was great. I still definitely recommend this one. But if you're going to read both of these, I recommend reading this one first before Local Woman Missing, because Local Woman Missing is just like a little bit more intense. And so this one is just kind of like a, you know what I'm saying? Both good though. Next up, I have Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. This is not my type of romance book. I am not very smut enthused. I don't care much for smut. It makes me uncomfortable. You can probably tell just now, just looking at me. It makes me uncomfortable. It makes me awkward. I'm not a sexual person, so I don't really enjoy reading that. This is nothing but smut. I DNF'd this book and restarted it. I can't tell you how many times. I would listen to it, and then we would get to one of those scenes and I would be like, this is just too much for me. This is not for me. And so I would DNF it, and then I would move on with my life, and then I would be like, well, I need to know what happens in like the story aspect, because I was invested in these characters like from the beginning. Specifically the male character. I think his name is Nathan. I always prefer the male protagonist. But anyways, I would stop it and then start thinking like, well, I want to know what happens to these characters. So I would start it again and I would listen for a little bit, and then we would get to another one of those scenes and I would just get uncomfortable and I'm like, I can't do this. I'm gonna, like, there's other stuff I can read. I'm gonna move on. So I would DNF it, and it was just a constant cycle. I did eventually finish it and it was good. The story itself was not anything like mind-blowing or anything like that. I thought it was sweet. I did like the characters. I like their dynamics. It's kind of enemies to lovers. Basically, our main characters, what is her name? Stassi is what they call her. I'm just going to call her Stassi. Stassi and Nathan both go to college. She's an ice skater. He is a hockey player. And they're forced to share an ice rink at one point. And this kind of causes tension. Stassi's very like a control freak almost, and wants to be in the Olympics. That's her dream, and she sees these hockey players as kind of an obstacle in her way of achieving that, since they now have to share the rink and share their time and all that kind of stuff. And so she and Nathan don't get off to a good start, but there is just like this chemical attraction between the two right from the beginning. So even though they're enemies to lovers, it still goes down. If you like smut, this is for you. This is full of it. If you're like me and you kind of just prefer the romance with less of the smut, I would maybe skip this one. It's up to you. Your discretion. Next up, I have A Shadow in the Ember by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This is the spin-off series from Blood and Ash. I boycotted this book forever because I was so mad when it came out. When A War Two Queens came out, I said the name of it, I think the last from Blood and Ash book. When that book came out, and I read through it and I had so many questions, and I found out you were supposed to read this one before you read The War of Two Queens. I was so mad. I was like, why did she just make it part of the series? If I need to read this one to understand Blood and Ash, it should be part of Blood and Ash. I'm getting heated just talking about it. So I boycotted it for the longest time. Finally took the plunge and listened to it as an audiobook. I even bought this one as an ebook after I read The War of Two Queens, because I just wanted my questions answered, and I started reading it, and the more I read it, the madder I got, and I was like, forget it. No. But I did find a audiobook copy, and so that's what I listened to. I'm glad I listened to it. I'm glad I read it overall. It does help clear some things up. I've heard this compared to The Bridge Kingdom. Is that the name of it? Super good. Danielle L. Jensen? I don't know. I'll put a picture here. I've heard it compared to this. Yes, kind of. She's trained from a young age. Serafina is trained from a young age, knowing that she is one day going to become the consort for the death god. What's his name? What do they call him? I don't know his actual title, but she's going to be his consort. So she's raised in preparation for that and trained for that, and she's not really a person outside of that as she's growing up. Something happens, and it turns out that he does not take her as his consort, and so she's kind of just left in limbo. Her family doesn't know what to do with her. She's not supposed to be here right now, but she was trained to be his consort and then eventually kill him to save their lands, which is kind of similar in the Bridge Kingdom as well. She's raised to marry this man, marry the king of her rival kingdom, and then murder him as well. So it is similar in that regard. I did find some similarities also between Serafina and Poppy. I plan to reread From Blood and Ash here in the next couple of months because the new one is coming out. I'm so excited. The new one is from Hawke's point of view for the first book, and I always love when we get the male protagonist point of view. Midnight Sun is my favorite for that reason. I'm hesitant to say I have high hopes for this one because I don't want to be disappointed from my hopes being too high, but I have high hopes for this one. I'm so excited. But yeah, I did. Anyways, that's besides the point. I found some similarities here between Poppy and Serafina. It was good overall. I recommend it. If you like Blood and Ash, I do think you should read this one. Even though it hurts me a little bit to say that. Next up, I have some Amish romances for you if you're not new to my channel. This won't be a surprise to you because I do read a fairly decent amount of Amish romances, and this is also the last books I'm going to talk about today. This last month I read the infamous Amish, which is a trilogy by Patricia Johns. The first one is The Preacher's Son, the second one is The Preacher's Daughter, the third one is Loving Lavina. All three sweet. They follow a group of siblings. There is the brother and then two sisters, and their father has kind of been exiled from the community for kind of financial fraud. He was lying to the people in the community, getting them to donate money to a cause, and then kind of keeping that money for himself. And it left a big toll on their community because he was a preacher. And now, like, no one knows who to trust. No one knows if they can actually trust their leaders. People are leaving the community to go be English and all that kind of stuff. So his deception, his betrayal left a big impact on the community. And because of that, everyone is looking at his children and wondering if they can trust them. And they kind of feel exiled themselves, even though they're not technically. They're still, like, living there, but they don't feel welcome anymore. They don't feel loved anymore. So each story focuses on their individual stories. But overall, the story was still sweet. And I listened to all three of these on audiobook. So there we go. Those are my recent reads for March. I had some good ones. I had some okay ones. Overall, a pretty successful reading month for me. April's going okay. I hope April's going okay for you. I hope March went okay for you. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, be sure to subscribe down below and leave a comment. You guys are awesome. I am so thankful for you and blessed to have you here on my channel. And we'll be back here next time. See ya!